What's up, fabulous people? I hope everyone's doing wonderful right now. I'm dealing with this cold right now, and I can't even, just praying it's not the Rona. Don't be the Rona. But anyway, I don't know if you guys had an opportunity to look at this conversation that Trump actually had with some of his quote-unquote donors when he was discussing the war in Ukraine. And here's what this madman actually had to say. Here's what the tweet says. Trump mused to donors that we should take our F-22 planes, put the Chinese flag on them, and bomb the shit out of Russia. And then we say, China did it. We didn't do it. China did it. And then they start fighting with each other, and we sit back and watch. All right, guys, let me just explain something. A former U.S. president cannot, even jokingly, be so reckless. This cowboy rhetoric coming from a man that would be hiding in a bunker with McDonald's cheeseburgers and double cheeseburgers and french fries and a sundae and a cone if a war broke out here, this would be comical if it wasn't diabolical. This is a precarious situation. This isn't a situation where we're discussing possibilities, like, will there be a war in Ukraine? No, this is a reality where there is a war in Ukraine. And don't think he's joking either. In his limited mind, he's actually thinking he came up with this rational, doable, logical resolution to this conflict. However, the implications of this kind of rhetoric can be catastrophic. You are dealing with an educated madman in Russia, not an uneducated madman like Trump. You're also dealing with an educated regime in China. You're talking about causing a world war involving two nuclear powers, China and Russia. China that has over 1 billion people. Do you think China or Russia think this is funny? Don't be delusional. We can't afford to go to war with either. And the media that thought this was newsworthy to report this, despite there being an actual war raging with a madman at the helm, are equally reckless. If you're going to post it, refute it in no uncertain terms. Show how maniacal it is. Don't just post it for clicks, likes, and views. The American media has shown us time and again that they prefer ratings over what's right. What does CBS say? Trump might be bad for America, but he's great for ratings. He's showing you again why he's bad for America. And the media are reminding me of one of the many reasons I don't listen to those propaganda machines anymore. Give a man nothing to lose, and he'll bring everyone down with him. Do people actually know what a no-fly zone means?
And do you support a no-fly zone in Ukraine?
I support everything that has to do with punishing Vladimir Putin and helping the Ukrainians.
Wouldn't that mean direct conventional warfare with Russia?
I don't know what it will mean, but you know freedom is not free.
So you don't know what a no-fly zone will mean. If you would have to shoot down Russian planes, I mean.
Of course.
So conventional war with Russia.
Listen, thank you.
Hi.
I know that we hear it a lot from President Zelensky.
Ми повторюємо кожного дня: закрити небо над Україною, закрити для всіх російських ракет, для російської бойової авіації, для всіх цих терористів. Зробіть гуманітарну повітряну зону без ракет, без авіа.
So we hear it from him, who is repeatedly shaming the West to get involved in World War III that will have catastrophic consequences for the globe. But do you know what it means? When you create a no-fly zone, you give permission to shoot down planes flying in that zone. Look at these polls. Look at how many Americans support it. Anywhere between 40 to 45%. Likely because many don't know what it means, and some are being asked deceptive questions because the media and some of these pollsters are itching for reasons to get more attention to their failed experiments. Also, it must be noted, the airspace we are talking about is contested between Russia and Ukraine. If we shoot down a plane or NATO shoots down a plane in that contested airspace, it will be World War III. If you're one of those people who say stuff like, I'm ready to go fight and die, so bring it on, there's a simple solution. Fly to Ukraine. There are people around the globe that are doing so. They're going and fighting for Ukraine. But you don't have the right to determine the outcome for me or anyone else. More bloodshed and carnage doesn't solve the problem. Lives cannot be replaced or restored. We cannot, under any circumstances, except if we are attacked, engage in combat in this crisis. We cannot afford to do it, and we cannot sacrifice human lives and create more casualties. Putin knows he messed up royally. Now is the time for real diplomacy. And I'm going to say something, and I know people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it because I think it's the right thing. Give Putin an off-ramp. He wants to get out, but he does not know how to do it without saving face because he wants to be able to seem like what he did was actually appropriate and justified and actually had some kind of resolution. To stop the loss of life and the destruction of Ukraine, first, ignore Lindsey Graham, who said this.
How does this end? Somebody in Russia has to step up to the plate. Is there Brutus in Russia? Is there a more successful Colonel Stauffenberg in the Russian military? The only way this ends, my friend, is for somebody in Russia to take this guy out. You would be doing your country a great service and the world a great service.
And Sean Hannity, who said this.
I don't know, maybe some smart country, maybe NATO might take some of their fighter jets, or maybe they can use some drone strikes and take out the whole damn convoy. And then nobody takes credit for it. So then Putin won't know who to hit back. Well, he's threatening nuclear weapons. Hannity, you talk about nuclear war. I'm not talking about nuclear war, nor would I support one American boot on the ground here. But at what point is this going to end? Because nobody did anything after Georgia was taken in 2008. Nobody cared about Crimea being annexed.
Please just ignore them for eternity. But if you can't ignore them for eternity, at least ignore them until this crisis is over. But here's the thing. Give Putin an off-ramp. Give him a way out. And it's a win-win situation, and here's why. You stop the destruction and bloodshed. You maintain the sovereignty of Ukraine. Give yourself time after it's over to strategize on how to stabilize that region. No other countries have to get involved. This stops the suffering of both the Ukrainian and Russian people. Then, after you've carefully strategized and deliberated, you can actually figure out the most effective way to handle the Putin regime. But understand this. If he feels he has nothing to lose and will likely be killed anyway, or he'll lose his entire livelihood, there's nothing to stop him from unleashing the wrath on the rest of the world. Cut the cowboy shit. Tell every poster, hell no, on a no-fly zone. And this in no way absolves Putin for what he did. Oh no. What it does is you stop the carnage while you strategize on the best way to effectively deal with him. That is the purpose of this. Give him an off-ramp for now. Create the illusion that what he did, okay, we've moved on. While behind the scenes, you're planning and you're plotting and you're strategizing. But if you continue the way we're continuing now, you're just going to have more carnage and loss of life. Is that what anybody really wants? Sanctions rely on the myth that these leaders care about public sentiment. They don't. They don't even allow their citizens to actually think. They are programmed. What you just saw, these are people that were crying after the death of Kim Jong-il in North Korea. These are people that were starved and deprived, but forced to cry for a man that caused immense suffering in their lives. They had to prove that they could outdo the crying of the person beside them or a person around them. They went overboard because you had to cry, even though this man had done some of the most barbaric things to you and starved your own people, you had to cry. These people were programmed. They're programmed. They can't think for themselves. Sanctions punish civilians, not governments. Putin is allegedly either the richest or one of the richest men in the world. The U.S. has been sanctioning Russia since at least 2014. It has sanctioned Cuba since 1962 until today. How can you argue that it's effective? You've been punishing Cuba since 1962. What changed for Cuba? What changed? Besides the people continuously suffering over and over and over, and the suffering getting worse. That's the only thing that's changed. Sanctions create economic instability and starvation for common people. Removing McDonald's, Starbucks, Coke, etc. from Russia doesn't hurt Putin. How many times have you seen Putin eating a Big Mac and some French fries? It hurts Russian employees and workers, people who eat at McDonald's or Starbucks, and the Russian economy. And it's deliberate too. It creates the illusion that the West is cracking down on tyrants and dictators, which the American and Western media will center their propaganda around. And they all know that it's not a punishment for these leaders, nor is it a deterrent. Was it a deterrent in Cuba since 1962?
The disintegrating buildings of Cuba's once magnificent capital, a reflection of a crumbling economy in what was once regarded as the jewel of the Caribbean. It's as though the country had been frozen in time, back to 1962, to when the United States declared an economic, financial, and diplomatic embargo against its tiny communist neighbor, years after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. 60 years later, he laments that the embargo is still in place.
They should have removed it long time ago. If after all this time the United States hasn't achieved anything, it certainly won't now. It only hurts our people, but the government remains in place.
They all know that it causes starvation and deprivation for common people who have nothing to do with the actions of their government. Look at Afghanistan. The suffering is unbearable. And you know what? Eventually, those problems we created become our problems as well. Sanctions should only be used to target those specific nefarious actors, not innocent people. You truly want to punish Putin? Then attack all his resources and the resources of the oligarchs and his enablers. Eventually, their deprivation will be Putin's demise. But this notion that sweeping sanctions are a deterrent is a fallacy. And now, we, Americans, are being sanctioned too. And some aren't even recognizing they are contributing to the collective hardship. I hear people saying things like, I'm willing to pay more for gas in order to show my solidarity with Ukraine. Think for a second. How does having higher gas prices causing suffering here help Ukrainian people who are being bombed, starved, pillaged, brutalized, maimed, and killed? How does creating additional suffering here stop suffering over there when you have Putin who's leading this war? We, as well as Ukrainians, should not have to suffer because of sanctions against Putin, who will have no problem getting gas with his billions of dollars. You aren't showing solidarity. You are showing complacency and complicity. You are taking the easy way out instead of demanding the government fix the gas prices crisis. You won't save a single Ukrainian life by paying higher gas prices. You are just enriching those exploitative companies. Objecting to Russian oil imports won't hurt Putin, who cares nothing about his people or their suffering. He'll find other ways around it, like he did with Visa and the MasterCard bans. So if you're cheering for sanctions that decimate economies and obliterate the livelihoods of common people, your humanity and or your logic have left the building. You truly want to help Ukrainian people? Donate. Come up with creative strategies like these people who are booking Airbnbs in Ukraine for multiple nights, but they know they're not going to stay there, but they're using that as a way to give the people the money. Buy things online, but ask them not to ship it. Donate to online stores or businesses. Donate to reputable organizations providing aid. There are ways to help the Ukrainian people without causing suffering for yourself. It is hard to comprehend the ignorance in common people. It is asinine and illogical to target Russian people either in Russia or abroad for the actions of their government. Imagine if countries and their people started targeting Americans for the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, or for overthrowing governments like Libya, or assisting in the genocide of the Yemeni people, or bombing in Syria, or the numerous other atrocities the U.S. has either facilitated, aided, or created. We wouldn't be able to open a business anywhere but in the U.S. There isn't a region we haven't had conflict with. But instead of doing any introspection or self-reflection, people are harassing, targeting, boycotting, and abusing Russians globally because of the actions of their government. A government, by the way, that suppresses their citizens' access to information, criminalizes dissent, and even murders opposition. But what have Russians in the U.S. done that warrants the backlash? They left Russia to live here. They obviously weren't trying to live under the Putin regime. How could they be influencing or controlling the decisions made by Putin? There isn't even evidence of a tangential relationship to Putin. But they're being blamed for the actions of a man that's in a country they don't even live in? And even many in Russia are protesting, risking their livelihoods, knowing the grave consequences. And some are facing up to 15 years in prison. They could be killed. Yet this isn't even enough for people to make distinctions between them and Putin. It's not enough that they will suffer greatly because of Western sanctions. Listen clearly. You aren't retaliating against Russia by vandalizing a mom and pop Russian bar or restaurant. You aren't retaliating against Russia by denying a Russian symphony musician the right to play in the symphony. You aren't retaliating against Russia for not letting a person with a Russian background compete in sports or precluding a soccer team from getting gas. You are targeting individuals and not their government, and you cannot justify it. The same way Africans were unjustly targeted when Ebola broke out, or Asian people were targeted because of the coronavirus. Instead of placing the blame on those that caused the crisis, or at times recognizing you don't have to place blame on anyone or anything. People feel they're being noble and righteous and exacting revenge on people will provide satisfaction. These people who are targeting people are living in your false sense of righteousness without recognizing you don't stop, curtail, alter, amend, or eradicate the crisis. You just create new ones. So, please keep your friend ignorance at home, because when you bring ignorance with you and it manifests itself, the fault should be on no one but yourself.